Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Bhaktivedanta Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Bhaktivedanta Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki Aniruddha Vaishnava Minigi Namacharya Sarvandas Thakur ki Prem Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Siva Sadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Syama Kundaradha Kundikiri Govardhan ki Sri Vrindavandam ki Jai Purab Dvaitam ki Sri Krishna Chaitra ki Jai Sri Ganga Maya ki Jai Sri Jamuna Maya ki Jai Bhakti Devi ki Jai Tulsi Devi Maharani ki Jai Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki Jai. All glories to the Assemblies. All glories to the Assemblies. All glories to the Assemblies. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Sri Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind. Chapter 16, King Chitraketu meets the Lord. Text number 26. Vishukuru Vacha. Is that what you got there? Yeah, okay. Bhaktayaitam prapanaya.
Bhaktayaitam prapanaya.
Vidyamadishya naradaha.
Vidyamadishya naradaha.
Yayav angirasa shakam.
Yayav angirasa shakam.
Dham swayam bhuvam prabho.
Dham swayam bhuvam prabho.
Sri Sukuru Vacha.
Sri Sukuru Vacha.
Bhaktayaitam prapanaya.
Bhaktayaitam prapanaya.
Vidyamadishya naradaha.
Vidyamadishya naradaha.
Yayav angirasa shakam.
Yayav angirasa shakam.
Dham swayam bhuvam prabho.
Dham swayam bhuvam prabho.
Sri Sukuru Vacha.
Sri Sukuru Vacha.
Bhaktayaitam prapanaya.
Bhaktayaitam prapanaya.
Vidyamadishya naradaha.
Vidyamadishya naradaha.
Yayav angirasa shakam.
Yayav angirasa shakam.
Dhamma swayam bhuvam prabho.
Dham swayam bhuvam prabho.
Sri Sukuru Vacha.
Sri
Sukuru Vacha.
Bhaktayaitam prapanaya.
Bhaktayaitam prapanaya.
Vidyamadishya naradaha.
Vidyamadishya naradaha.
Yayav angirasa shakam.
Yayav angirasa shakam.
Dhamma swayam bhuvam prabho.
Dhamma swayam bhuvam prabho.
Sri Sukuru Vacha.
Sasakam Dhammasayam Bhuvam Prabhu
Ladies?
Shri Sukha Uvacha Bhaktayaitam Prapannaya Vidyamadishya Narada Yayav Angirasa Shakham Dhamma Swayam Bhuvam Prabhu Shri Sukha Uvacha Bhaktayaitam Prapannaya Vidyamadishya Narada Yayav Angirasa Shakham Dhamma Swayam Bhuvam Prabhu Shri Sukha Uvacha Bhaktayaitam Prapannaya Vidyamadishya Narada Yayav Angirasa Shakham Dhamma Swayam Bhuvam Prabhu Sri Sukha Uvacha Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Bhaktaya unto the devotee, Etam, this, Prapanaya, unto one, who fully surrendered, Vidyam, transcendental knowledge, Ajishya, instructing, Narada, the great sage Narada, Yayo, left, Angirasa, the great sage Angira, or the great saint, Sakam, with Dhamma, for the topmost planet, Swayambhuvam, belonging to Lord Brahma, Prabhu, O King. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continues, Narada, having become the spiritual master of Chitraketu, instructed him fully in this prayer because Chitraketu was fully surrendered. O King Parikshit, Narada then left with the great sage Angira for the topmost planet known as Brahmaloka. Purport. When Angira had first come to visit King Chitraketu, he did not bring Narada with him. However, after the death of Chitraketu's son, Angira brought Narada to instruct King Chitraketu about Bhakti Yoga. The difference was that in the beginning, Chitraketu was not in a temperament of renunciation. But after the death of his son, when he was overwhelmed by his great plight, he was awakened to the platform of renunciation by instructions regarding the falsity of this material world and material possessions. It is only at this stage that Bhakti Yoga can be instructed. As long as one is attached to material enjoyment, Bhakti Yoga cannot be understood. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 44.
Bhoga Aishvarya Prasaktanam Taya Parita Chetasam Vyavasaya Mika Buddhi Samadho Na Vidhivate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination of devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. As long as one is very much attached to material enjoyment, one cannot concentrate his mind on the subject matter of devotional service. The Krishna consciousness movement is progressing successfully in the Western countries at the present moment because the youth in the West have reached the stage of vairagya, or renunciation. They are practically disgusted with material pleasure from material sources, and this has resulted in a population of hippies throughout the Western countries. Now, if these young people are instructed about Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness, the instructions will certainly be effective. As soon as Chitraketu understood the philosophy of Vairagya Vidya, the knowledge of renunciation, he could understand the process of Bhakti Yoga. In this regard, Srila Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has said, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. Vairagya Vidya and Bhakti Yoga are parallel lines. One is essential for understanding the other. It is also said, Bhakti Pareshanabhavo Viraktiya Anyatra Cha. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 11.242. Advancement in devotional service or Krishna consciousness is characterized by increasing renunciation of material enjoyment. Narada Muni is the father of devotional service, and therefore, just to bestow causeless mercy upon King Chitraketu, Angira brought Narada Muni to instruct the king. These instructions were extremely effective. Anyone who follows in the footsteps of Narada Muni is certainly a pure devotee. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Salakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Vishtam Stapitam Jena Bhuktale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Gunim Yakripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatayam. Okay, so Maharaj Chitraketu was initially intent on having a son. This was his lamentation. And as is often the case, people who are engulfed in material desires think that when a saintly person visits them, that they will be kind and merciful and give them and fulfill their desires. What's that? What was it? A bee.
wasn't anything that Prabhupada dropped or anything like that. So, people are often seeking blessings from the sadhus or the saints, thinking that somehow or other, if I give a donation to Krishna, then he'll fulfill all of my desires. So it's a very mercantile mentality, merchant in the heart. And with that kind of mentality, they don't want to hear transcendental knowledge. Although transcendental knowledge, and here that's described, vidyam, right? Vidyam. Transcendental knowledge. Vidya is the real wealth of the sadhus or the saintly persons. Vidya. And but it has to be delivered to somebody who is willing to receive it. Otherwise, it's a waste of time, in many respects. Oh, no, not entirely a waste of time, but it can be a futile effort to instruct somebody who doesn't want to hear. Right? A man, what is it? A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Right? Yeah. And all you get is an argument, right? Or a protest, or whatever. So we have to be careful about instructing others. And as we've mentioned many times, sometimes just not talking is the best kind of example. But, one's actions, what do they say? There's another aphorism. Actions speak louder than words. Right? So very often, just the company of a devotee is powerful. Doesn't have to say anything, but just acts, demonstrates. Right? Sometimes the best way to demonstrate a principle is to put it in action, is to do it. So even though bhakti is described as, akarma, without action, still a devotee is very active. His activities are instructive, but because they're not of the material realm. And one of the qualities of the devotee is that they practice, they demonstrate renunciation. And Prabhupada says here, renunciation is required. So Maharaj Chitraketu was deeply attached to this notion, the idea that he should have a son. This is one of a variety of material aspirations that people have. Make money, be famous, be influential, powerful, learned. The opulences are to be beautiful, what's, you know, the booming industry at the moment is, and getting themselves in a bit of trouble, is the cosmetics industry. Right? Big money in making people look beautiful.
Now focus towards men.
Men and women, everybody's vain. But as Prabhupada mentions here, Bhoga Aishwarya Prasaktanam, Bhoga, enjoyment, and Aishwarya, opulence, you know, material enjoyment, material opulence. If one is attached to these things, then Taya Padhita Chetasa, it bewilders the consciousness of the person. And so, very difficult to give instructions to somebody whose focus is on material enjoyment. Vyavasayatmika buddhi, that focus, that one pointed attention or attentiveness can't be developed. So Maharaj Chitraketu, what did Angira do? He helped fulfill his material desires, but he gave him a warning. This son will be a cause of happiness, but also distress. So he's called Harsha Shoka. And of course, this was an arrangement by Angira Muni to bring Maharaj Chitraketu to that point of frustration, effectively, with material life, because true to his name, there was great jubilation when the son was born. But then it was a cause of, you know, oh, wonderful, I've got a son. But then all sorts of problems ensued after that, because the queens of Maharaj Chitraketu, who were then neglected because they didn't have any children, became envious, and so they poisoned the son. He died. So then, great lamentation. But in that mood of frustration and disappointment, Maharaj Chitraketu could see the starkness, the reality of material existence. That there's momentary enjoyment, but it doesn't last. What is it? Yehi samsparsaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavanta kuntaya nate shuramate buddha. The enjoyment of the material world has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Everything. And Krishna recommends, we have to learn to tolerate these things. Tatikshasva bharata. Agama payano nitjas tam tatikshasva bharata. The comings and goings, happiness and distress, hot and cold, pleasure and pain. This is material existence. And nothing is permanent. Na sato vijite bhavo, na bhavo vijite sataha. Of the temporary, there is no endurance, and of the permanent, there is no cessation. So the devotees, or the transcendentalists, devotees. Those who have knowledge, the intelligent, the wise, I guess, buddhi means wise, see the limitations of material enjoyment. And they understand what its purpose is. Maharaj Chittraketa was thinking, let me have a son so that I can enjoy his, the benefits of having a son. But as soon as his son was gone, then he was able to really appreciate the nature of material existence. And so therefore, when Angira Muni came with Narada Muni, he understood. Maharaj Chittraketa was now ready for instruction because he's experienced the reality of material existence. So, when a person is attached to the material realm, material enjoyment, then not a good candidate for spiritual instruction. But when there's some suffering, some strife, and usually we think suffering, oh no, how unfortunate. Right? But a devotee sees, oh, suffering, good. How fortunate that you're now able to see the reality of existence. That it is a place of misery, actually, or let's say ups and downs. The material ocean. You're on the top of the wave, but then you're down in the trough. Oh, we're going to drown. So, Narada Muni, Angira knew that Maharaj Chittraketa was to be in this state of quandary, questioning. Because in that environment where the starkness of material existence is staring one in the face, then one starts to inquire, why? And this is a qualification of a devotee, is this inquisitiveness, wanting to know why. What is the purpose of existence? Why so much suffering? Why enjoyment, but then why? What's the purpose of all of this? And the purpose is to bring us to this point of vidya, knowledge. And not just knowledge of the pain and suffering of the material realm, but bringing us to the point of understanding, and Prabhupada mentions here, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. Vairagya Vidya. That the process of spiritual understanding, of spiritual knowledge, requires this mood of renunciation. Understanding. Everything is shifting. And ultimately it's shifting according to the arrangements of the Supersoul, of Krishna, of the Paramatma. Brahma Buddha, Ishvaraha Sarvabhutanam Hridesha Arjuna Tishtati. Krishna says, I'm in the hearts of everybody, I'm directing the wanderings of all of the living entities. So the devotee, instead of seeing the material world as a place for their enjoyment, they start to look at the material world with a different perspective. Instead of that mood of possessiveness, there's an understanding of renunciation in that the material realm belongs to somebody else, not to me. And that ultimately that owner or controller of the material realm is the supreme controller, the supreme personality of Godhead ultimately. And that's real knowledge. So Prabhupada makes the point, or gives the example of a devotee who's like a bank teller in a bank. He's counting lots of money, but he doesn't think the money belongs to him. Right? If the bank teller takes some of the bank's money home with him, thinking it belongs to him, he hasn't got his job for very long. So, in that mood of custodian, of custody, right? of being a custodian, the devotees are able to interact with the creation, the material creation, if you like, but with a mood of renunciation. What is it? Idam Krishnaya, idam namama. This is Krishna's, it's not mine. Which is interesting. You know, in the wedding ceremony that we do, there's more than one place where there's a statement made. Even the groom has to make the statement. This bride belongs to Prajapati Vishnu, not to me. Just to remind the devotees. And in the ceremony itself, idam Krishnaya, idam namama, idam Vishnoe, idam namama. There's many places in the ceremony where the statement is made. This belongs to Vishnu, or this belongs to Krishna. Idam namama, this is not mine. So there's this very deep meditation and understanding of renunciation. But that's a little confusing because, you know, the devotees drive motor cars, they own property, they deal with money. In fact, as a devotee, we're given money. Right? We're given money. People just give you money. Right? Which is interesting. It's actually recommended, don't take the money. Don't take the money of materialistic people. Right? Because Sangat Sanjayate Karma, you become like those you associate with. Right? So Prabhupada said, don't take money from materialistic people. Don't talk to materialistic people even. Don't share intimate conversation with people who are materially absorbed, is the warning. Right? So, what does that mean? Because, you know, we go out, we get donations from people, we take money. But we don't put it in our own bank account. We put it into Krishna's bank account, right? And we use it for Krishna's service. If you take the money and put it in your own pocket, what will happen? You'll spend it on yourself. Yeah, that's right. And it'll influence you. Money is, what's the aphorism? Money is the root of all evil. Right? Gold is where Kali resides, isn't it? Gold is where Kali resides. So, this mood of Bhakti Vidya, Vairagya Vidya, this mood of renunciation, which comes about as a consequence of understanding the reality of material existence, brings about this understanding that everything belongs to Krishna. And as such, then, should be used in Krishna's service. And it's interesting, in the Upanishad it mentions, if you work it with that understanding, you can live for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years without getting reactions. Right? So this Vairagya Vidya, this knowledge of renunciation, means idam Krishna, idam namama. This belongs to Krishna, it doesn't belong to me. And so a devotee can take material wealth and opulence, influence, power, and understanding that it belongs to Krishna, can use it in Krishna's service. But that example is powerful. That example itself, in and of itself, doesn't have to say anything. It is powerful. Because it's not very good if a devotee takes those things and then starts to try to enjoy them. This is the danger of even and why Prabhupada recommends devotees, especially householders, should avoid opulent food, opulent dwellings, and opulent conveyances. Right? You know what that means? Conveyances. What's a conveyance? Is it good? What does it mean? You know? No? Conveyance. It also starts with a C. Car is a conveyance. So interesting. Renunciation is required, and one needs to live simply for oneself. Fulfill one's needs, which is, what? A little bit of sabji, a few chapatis. Simple, right? And how many sets of clothes do you need? How many saris do you need? 2. 2 sets of clothes. So keep it, we for ourselves, we should keep it simple. For Krishna, we can accept all sorts of opulence. And you can see in a temple, the service of the deity is opulent. But that's for Krishna's pleasure. And that's the example by Vairagya Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga, is a devotee himself or herself lives simply, and the understanding is this is for Krishna, not for me. That instruction was delivered to Maharaj Chitraketu because he was at that point of renunciation where he could understand, and Prabhupada makes the point that here that the Krishna consciousness movement is preaching in the Western countries, and the youth of the Western world in the middle of the 60s was at that point of renunciation. They'd experienced the height of material enjoyment, effectively. But what happened? Frustrated. Is this it? Is that it? There's got to be more into life, which is really what prompts a lot of inquiry, spiritual inquiry. I've tried out material enjoyment. I'm living in an opulent environment, but I'm not happy. Right? Not happy. I've got my family have given me wealth. They've given me material facility. I've tried to enjoy it, but all it gave me was suffering. And you know, we see it even today. There's so much of material opulence in one sense. We're living in a very wealthy and opulent country. Plenty of space, plenty of fresh air, enough to eat, enough to do, to have fun. But what do we have instead? We've got the high, you know, suicide rates very high. People are frustrated. Mental health is causing issues, problems, because our real happiness is not derived from material wealth and facility. But real happiness comes from identifying with or realizing our spiritual identity. That's real wealth. That's why the sages and the saints like Aniruddha and Narada Muni are respected and worshipped because they're happy without material facility. And what do people want? They want happiness before they want material facility. Or put it this way, having material facility, one is not happy. So when people meet the devotees and the devotees show signs of what's the word? They're peaceful, right? They're equipoised. What is it? They see everybody equally. And they're happy, equipoised and steady and happy. That's what people want. They think they're going to get that from material possessions, but that's what happened in Maharaj Chittagiri. So a characteristic of advancement in a devotee is not attachment to material things, but an increase of what does Prabhupada say here? Advancement in devotional service of Krishna consciousness is characterized by increasing renunciation of material enjoyment. Which people don't like, when people are shocked, or if they find out if they find out that you're going to the Hare Krishna temple, no, renunciation. Right? Oh no, your life will be finished, you won't have any fun. Right? But actually the devotees are having the most fun. That's why they're able to give up material enjoyment, because they know it's a dud. Right? Material enjoyment is a dud. But spiritual enjoyment is real pleasure. And it's in simple things. Simple things like chanting Hare Krishna. Right? So this is a real quandary for people. They see the devotees chanting Hare Krishna and they're just happy. They're happy. And they get upset. Well, you're a renunciate and you're giving up material things, but you're happy. That's not fair. Right? How come you're so happy? But that's how, because they are experiencing, what is it? Raja Vijja Raja Guya Pavitram Idamuttamam. It's not of the material plane. It's on the spiritual plane. And because the devotees are chanting Hare Krishna, they're cultivating this Vairagya Vijja. They're experiencing deep satisfaction and happiness. Hare Krishna. Very well. We're having class. Silent mantra chanting, okay? While we're having Bhagavatam class. The kirtan is the speaker. So the devotees deeply connecting with themselves, with Krishna, and ultimately with themselves. And so they're happy. Right? They're actually happy. And in that state of susukam kartam, what is it? It is the perfection of religion because it gives direct perception of the self. And the self is Satchit Ananda. So when we're chanting Hare Krishna, the chanting of Hare Krishna removes ignorance. Or it removes the coverings of ignorance, like taking a bath, right? Removes the dirt. So that's why chanting Hare Krishna is like taking a bath. Cheto darpanam marjanam. So that removal of ignorance uncovers the real spiritual self. That's why the devotees are very happy. Like Prabhupada says, they're like jubilant peacocks dancing. They walk around like they own the joint. Even though they got nothing, they still are happy. Right? So that's really striking for the materialists. They think that's such a challenge. You know, why are these people happy and they've got nothing? They got nothing and they're so happy and confident and in your face. These Hare Krishnas are annoying, aren't they? But that's because the real happiness is not in material pursuits, not in money or position, learning, material learning, or influence. None of those things, because they can all come and go. But the realization of transcendental experience is what really satisfies. And why the devotees, when they come to the temple, they don't pray to Krishna, give me money, let me pass my exam, let me get that next job. They don't. They say, Krishna, what do you want me to do? I'm here to, rather than praying to Krishna, give me, right? They're praying to Krishna, what do you want? What do you want from me? What would you like me to do? Who am I, and what do you want me to do? That's why the pandemic, it was a bit of a boom for everybody really, because, then they start praying, oh God, what do you want me to do? Yeah. So, when a devotee understands that, then there's often a slackening of material pursuits, which can be alarming for people. Oh no, they're just interested in in charming and studying. They're not interested in working hard to make money. Or they're working hard, but they're giving all of their money to Krishna. Or, in the 60s and the 70s, was all the money is going to the cult leader. Yeah. So, but of course, we use it in Krishna's service. It's not for us. That's Vairagya Vidya. So, Maharaj Chitraketu, Angira Muni understood. Initially, we can't preach to this fellow. He's too materially attached. But when he was frustrated by his material pursuits, then he was ready to receive instruction. So when that occasion arose, then Angira brought Narada Muni to instruct Maharaj Chitraketu. And we know Narada Muni is expert at he's an expert guru, if you like, in that he's able to deliver transcendental knowledge in the right circumstance, and is the spiritual master for many of the persons mentioned in Bhagavatam. Okay, any comments or questions on any of these points?
Yeah, how can we remain connected to Krishna all the time?
You know what? You know the saying? There's more comes out of the bead bag than just a finger. Yeah. Especially in this age, it's mentioned that what can be achieved by years of meditation in the Satya Yuga can be achieved simply by chanting Hare Krishna. And there are two ways. There's the vibration of one's lips and tongue, right? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. And smarana, just remembering the Maha Mantra, right? This is considered to be the more potent than archana, worship of the deity, right? So we remain connected to Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna, right? That's the idea. But with attention, not, just sniggity ram, hurdy-gurdy Krishna, right? So attentive chanting. Because Krishna is, what is it? Oh, I don't know the verse. Krishna is non-different from his name, so he's present in his name. And we remain connected with him by chanting, whether vibrating the lips or internally meditating on a mantra within the mind. But that chanting has to be done with attention, with focus. It can't be done neglectfully or without attention. Then, if we're chanting, and this is what Prabhupada says, we recommend 16 rounds, right? And this is Lord Chaitanya's instruction also. Lord Chaitanya instructed his disciples that they should chant a fixed number of rounds every day, right? Sankhya Purvakana Nagarana Tipi, also the Goswamis. Sankhya means to count, right? So the instruction by Lord Chaitanya to the devotees is chant a fixed number of rounds every day, right? That's our method. Our method is we chant minimum 16 rounds a day to keep connected with Krishna. And if we do that, then at other times, and that chanting means 16 attentive rounds and you don't do anything else for it to be effective, right? So if you do that, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said you should chant 64 rounds. If you can't chant 64 rounds, you're fallen. Right? So we're fallen. But Prabhupada says minimum 16, because he makes a point that people from the Western countries can't sit still for too long. Right? Have you ever chanted 64 rounds in a day? It's a bit of effort, quite a bit of an effort. What about 16 rounds? That's an effort, isn't it? Yeah, it's an effort. But if you chant 16 attentive rounds, how do you feel? Incomparable, right? Yeah. And so it's easy to remember Krishna if you fulfill that requirement, right? So that's for us, because this is the Yuga Dharma actually. We can't underestimate the potency, or we shouldn't underestimate the potency of chanting 16 rounds, attentive rounds, so that all we're doing when we're chanting is hearing the mantra. Nothing else. No? Have you tried that? Is it easy? No, it requires effort also. Yeah, but if you do it, right, then you get connection to Krishna, and you feel, yeah, this is, I know why I chant Hare Krishna. So, and of all of our, if there's anything that we do, that's the main thing, is to perfect our lives means to chant Hare Krishna properly. Well, that's the perfection. And from that, even though it's such a simple thing, and because of its simplicity, the simplicity covers or hides its potency. Right? But if it's done properly, then you'll always feel connected with Krishna. You'll always think of Krishna. Right? Or you'll just, it's powerful. Powerful, purifying. So, pratak savagamam dhamyam susukam kartanabhiyam. Chanting Hare Krishna. What do you think? Is that okay? Then you can ignore the family stuff. Huh? You'll be in ecstasy despite all the problems of life, all the commitments, and because ultimately you're doing things. See, it changes the consciousness, so the focus is on doing things for Krishna. Then everything falls into place in that environment. Hare Krishna. Anything else? We should call it a day, I think. 2 minutes past 9. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai, Mahaprasadam ki jai. But you know what? All the Mahaprasadam's been eaten by now, I reckon.
Nothing greater than the Bhagavatam itself, say.
Bhagavatam's prasadam, of course it is.